We're just waiting for a few more to join. We'll start another 2 minutes.
I think there are two mics which are pretty near. Maybe that's the reason.
Good afternoon, all. Welcome to this GSS session. So I would like to introduce our guest who will be taking the session further. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Mr. Amandeep Singh, Colonel Amandeep Singh. So I'll give a short introduction about him. So as a seasoned professional with vast experience of more than 37 years, Colonel Amanpreet has served in the Navy for Army for 21 years and was decorated with Shaurya Chakra. He has been associated with SCL Technologies for 8 years and had been promoted as General Manager responsible for facilities and administration. Post his stint with SCL, he has been working with G Media for 2 years as a Vice President, currently employed with Coforge Limited, NIT, as a Vice President, Commercial Services heading the administration. And now I would like to introduce the second guest who will be taking this session further. Mr. Sneh Anand Giri, working at the DGM NIT Limited, comes with 23 years of rich experience in administration, facility management, infrastructure developing, and real estate. He has been keen communicator as a eye for detail and efficient partnering with the business stakeholders. He has also been associated with SL Technology, Lufthansa Cargo, Exchange Technologies, and Excel Insurance. Now I would like to hand over the session to Gautam. Gautam, over to you. Gautam, can you hear me?
Hi, first of all, Thank you so much, Colonel Aman and Sneh sir, for joining us today. So Aman sir, before I have a couple of questions which are shared by our members to us, and they really wanted to take your inputs on that. But before we start that, I just want to know a little more about how the FM approach has changed over the last 1 year. So what is that one positive change that you see in the overall approach of FMs from last March till this year?
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Colonel Amanpreet. I represent Coforge Limited here. And this is the company which was earlier known as NIIT Technologies. As far as Gautam, your welcome is concerned, I'm grateful that we've got a chance to be here today. And I look forward to an interactive session with all our members who are online. The one positive change that you see in the operations, I would summarize it in one word, and I'd say confidence. The biggest thing that we have gained is confidence in our own abilities, confidence in facing a challenge which has not been seen by generations. And for probably after the Spanish flu, this is the next pandemic which has hit us worldwide. And nobody knew anything. The world did not know anything. The biggest superpowers of the world did not know what to do. But it was our fraternity of the facility managers who faced up to the challenge. We learned everything new. We learned on the fly. We developed our SOPs. We found new ways to deal with the entire crisis and came out in the end towards a win-win situation for everybody. So I feel that the biggest thing that we have learned is to have confidence in your abilities and face something head on, which we've all done in a very, very, very effective manner, I'm very sure.
Right. Thank you so much, Aman sir, for this. Now, I would like to go back to Sneh sir and wanted to know, Sneh sir, since the admin and facilities wear multiple hats, so what is that one additional responsibility that you see FM taking over in 2021?
Thank you, Gautam. Very good evening to everyone present here. I am grateful to GSCS who has given this opportunity to me. Finally, after say 12 years, I represent NIIT and as well as I represent GSCS over here. Gautam, coming back to your question, the additional responsibility with regards to COVID that has come, I would rather say, bombarded to us. But I'll just step back a little bit over here before I answer this question. That we first of all we are representing admin folks, facility and workplace forces, and over here we have many learned and experienced members. And it would be fair to say that many of us have learned with our exposure, and some of us have been trained exclusively as well on our respective workplace service approach. And we would all agree that COVID preparedness is one subject which none of us have more than 1 year of experience into it. So whatever our present experience levels could be and number of years added to it, let's forget ourselves being top guns about it, that we know about COVID a lot or sufficiently. Instead, let's consider ourselves as a rookie. And as a rookie, we need some notes, guides, special formula to pass exams. Probably we need champions to pass this test. I mean, let us try and consider some frameworks around whom we can follow. I mean, framework, I am not being very explicit. It could be any particular framework. It could be PDCA, it could be Six Sigma, it could be 5 Whys. And probably when we put our organization dynamics and requirements into it, probably we would come to know that what all additional responsibilities have been given to us, especially with regard to COVID. As an individual, as a professional at NIIT Limited, I can very well say that a couple of additional responsibilities that have come over, and that is in addition to, so COVID is a part of health and safety. That is in addition to a EHS responsibility that we used to have, wherein apart from ISO certifications, we had in general EHS rules, guidelines, and best practices to be followed. COVID has come as an additional weight to be carried with manifold quantity. And one exclusive thing that I would say that has been coming in additionally is that facilities and workplace at yet used to be like a cost center. Probably with this particular scenario wherein work from home, work from office, dual mode, probably we are a profit center now as well. We are kind of, and not kind of, rather we are responsible for what savings that we bring in. What is our input to bring down our costs? What is our input to make this new business sustainable? Make this new business dependable? Because, and I say this from the light of the fact that probably in service industry, wherein there are service industry, rather I would not talk about sheer production or factories over here, but in service industry, there are very less chances that 100% of the people would work again from office. It is probably never going to happen again. And this model is going to exist. We have to be ready for it. We have to create our infrastructure accordingly. We have to create our service patterns. We have to create our people accordingly. We have to prepare our people accordingly. So that's one thing that I think has been of late new to us.
Gautam, can I come in here?
Yes, please, sir.
Sneh, I hope you finished.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. What I would say, Gautam, that in continuation of what Sneh has, very rightfully brought out, some of the major aspects which, I mean, by and large, our responsibility remains the same. Just the manner in which we conduct it, or the depth with which we deal with those issues that we've always been dealing with might vary to, in some aspects, to a different level. But the major additional responsibility I find, which is going to be, coming across onto us, is one is enabling people to work from home. We've got people who are working from home from their hometowns. They have been provided with the machines or the computers, the assets to work from there. There are going to be breakdowns. They're going to have them replaced. They're going to have them changed. They're going to change projects. Like I work out of an SEZ, your units will change. So there will be a lot of additional work on this aspect of making people work from home is going to be one, I feel. And the second issue, which is going to be a strong one at the workplace, is going to be ensuring health of the employees, which we used to, be involved in it, ensuring the environment, the health, the safety, EHS that we all were looking into. But now we are going to get involved in aspects of personal health. Whether, a person is feeling well, is appearing well, is that person's, does that person need a test on, the scan for the virus, in case that, enabling that in the office area, providing the support for people who are detected with a problem at home. These additional responsibilities will definitely be looked at by the managements of all the organizations. They will be, wanting us to get involved with those. In addition to the variances that we have in our day-to-day functions, which we've been carrying on for time immemorial, there are going to be variations on that also. But the additional new ones, I feel, are largely going to be work from home and the healthcare that we provide to our employees. And also, an additional factor would be the insurance cover, the ability to provide it in time, which is always there. But this is going to be an additional one. The aspects will change.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I think at large, we are talking about employees. So how far you see that there are behavioral changes which are required in the organization from employees as well to create a safe and hygiene workplace for them?
Well, if I may start on that also, I'm already sensing this, that when we had my organization where I work never went into a complete lockdown. We had mission critical people at the office throughout. I personally, along with my team members, had moved into the campus on the night of the declaration of the lockdown, and we were there for almost a fortnight plus. Equipping people to work from home. There were a lot of people who used to work on desktops, etc., and they had to be equipped from home to work, which we did with whatever resources we had in our pool, the organization. We rented a lot of laptops that we dished out. We dished out close to 1,700 machines over NCR. And these were all done when the lockdown had just been announced. Things were very strict. No movement was allowed. How we managed to do that is a story in itself, which, I won't take up too much of time in explaining. And people were also extremely cautious. Extremely, I remember initially people were not keen to come to the office. Right? Nobody was, to be very frank, because the fear of the disease, it was such an unknown threat. It was a total hover, and we were seeing those videos of, purported videos or real videos of the people in Wuhan and other cities of China being locked up, and roads being dug up to prevent people from moving from away from there and all. So the fear psychosis was on a very, very high scale, and to get people in for the mission critical work also was quite a challenge initially for the business teams, the delivery teams. Many of them came. Many of them were incentivized for the same, and they have carried the business going. The change I see now that the news of the vaccine has come in, people are feeling more confident. There is a view that movie halls have opened, restaurants are functional, public transport is available, people are traveling already, people are holidaying also. There is a great tendency which is creeping into people thinking that it's over and done with. And that is where we are going wrong in our behavior primarily. That is why if you see, after December, there was almost, absolute die out of infections in the NCR region, very, very few occurrences with gaps of many days in between, which has been largely negated in the last week and a half to maybe 2 weeks. Why? Because of the behavior of people. There is a sense of carelessness which is stepping in. There is a callous kind of an attitude, kuch nahi hone wala, everything is over. I feel that aspect has to yet be guarded on till we are at a stage where we are very, very sure that we are behind, we have this threat behind us, which is not the case as of now. So this attitude of, it's all gone and done with, especially the younger lot. I see a lot of young people. We used to have segregated seating in our cafeterias. Even people were bringing food from home. They were being made to sit at least 6 feet apart and everything. But now groups are getting together. People are eating in groups, sharing their food. They're walking around together. They're not wearing masks. They are not taking the precautions. I used to run out of sanitizer. I remember in the initial days, I used to place a sanitizer bottle in an ODC or in a workplace area, and it used to empty within minutes or maybe even hour. People used to fill in their small bottles and carry the sanitizer home because it was in a short supply outside. Today, we are still providing the sanitizers. Nobody is using them. People, or not, I won't say nobody is using them, but people are not so conscious today. So the behavioral change, which is very, very important, is to remember that it's not it's not gone and done with already, and we can be callous or ignorant about it.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Sneh sir, would you like to add something?
That was very rightly articulated by Colonel Lega. I mean, just one point that I would like to touch upon is Colonel Lega talked about the young lot. Personally, within my experience, in my current assignment, about 60% of my folks are young lot. They are under 30, and he rightly pointed out that it kind of becomes really difficult to manage that particular crowd in terms of manipulating or affecting their behavior, how they used to carry themselves within the office, how they important thing is how they want themselves to be treated. Over here, just one small point which I would like my audience, and especially those audience who are FMs or managing facilities elsewhere, that their anxiety, that lot, those customers, those young customers, they are also going through an anxiety level, and I would rather say increased anxiety levels. They need to be managed accordingly. First of all, the expectations need to be set right from their perspective, and as well, a sense of safety is needed to be given to them. If we really want to induce some kind of behavioral changes amongst them, the only thing is that how to control it. There are various nerve points that can be attacked. One point is, of course, the hard way, going through the manager or telling them that this is something that you need to do, otherwise take it or leave it kind of scenario, which of course is the hand in a baton in hand kind of thing. But what I feel that while this is a problem rightly put across, we have to deal it in some other way, and maybe communication is the key. How we communicate the new working practice to them, how we communicate the new style, the new measures that we have in our offices to them. We need to be consciously telling them that why we are doing that and what are the takeaways in any additional initiative. So for example, if we are asking them to sit away from each other, of course there are few things that they know about it, but if we put it from a WHO guideline perspective, that the 2 meter is something that has been precisely said so to be maintained and maintained while you sit across, because you never know how the other person is behaving or whether he is a carrier of virus or not. So they would obviously they feel offended when they are stopped at security main gate. Sometimes they say that why do I give a declaration? I'm not going to give sign for any declaration whether I'm feeling all right or I'm feeling sick. So they need to be managed, and I think together collectively through some innovative means, I don't say that I know about that particular means. I am knowledgeable enough that I have all such tricks and tips available with me, but we have to find some solutions around it. Communication is one thing that Gautam, I feel that is going to be the key in order to bring them on track.
Right. Thank you so much. I think this was really, really great inputs from your side. I think we all agree that despite vaccination, we see social distancing, hand sanitization, and mask to continue in 2021. So, what are some of the key changes in the infra that you want to talk about? So what should be right approach for the FMs so that they at least create their facility ready for the people who are joining back?
So, Gautam, thank you. That's a very pertinent point. And in fact, the entire industry, FM industry is talking about such things, that what all improvements that have been brought in, that have been rather, there were certain products that were pushed into market, and really fancy products, fancy gadgets. And then suddenly people started buying them. Many of us have bought them. And then ultimately, after a couple of months, we realized that, that was a Chinese product. Spare parts are not available. I cannot maintain it. The vendor who supplied is found to be nowhere, and they're struggling. Well, the caution that we as FMs need to exercise is be very patient, be very clear about our own thoughts and about the solutions that we really want to implement. There is no fun, there would be no outcome if we just we in a hype we go for a particular technology and bring it over, which cannot be maintained, which cannot be sustained for long. I can talk about for the group's benefit, I would rather talk about 3-4 such things. But let us understand first that where technical involvement or technology involvement is coming into picture. And I must say that whether it is social distancing, whether it is travel, working arrangements, workstation hygiene, entry, exit, transport, everywhere technology has been playing a role. Right now, there could be a good product or a better product. There may not be best product as yet, or there in some fields there are some best products also around. But there are certain technological developments in that part. For example, social distancing that I talked about. There are surveillance cameras integrated with software, and they give you as an FM, it would give you an alarm as and when it detects 4 or 5 people or more than one person or in a 2-meter diameter. So again, as I said, that these kind of solutions are available in market. It's just that we have to carefully scrutinize and bring them on the board. There are few things, of course, that are prevalent in market and have been, they have justified their presence. For example, if I talk about, we all say that entrance environment. I mean, within an entrance environment, what happens at an office's main gate? We do temperature check. How do we do temperature check? Probably most of the establishments are using those IR-based handguns. It is not far. It was just about a few months back. I remember buying a few 50 or hundreds of them IR guns, and then suddenly we realized, though they were from a well-reputed brand in measuring instruments, and we found that they are way off by say 5 degrees, 6 degrees, and you would agree that while we are measuring fever, even 1 degree makes a difference, because if it is 98.3 and if it is 99.3, it is going to decide whether you will be permitted inside a building or you would not be. So it has to be accurate. Whatever we are doing has to be accurate. From sanitization perspective, we have been sanitizing our workplace of late quite frequently. How do we sanitize it? Government has given certain directions. They have given certain advisories, one being sodium hypochlorite. All right, sodium hypochlorite is to be sprayed with a fertilizer gun, but at the same time, it leaves white residues. So are you going to use sodium hypochlorite in your working area with computers and hardware and sophisticated production equipment? Probably no, you would need something else. So what that can be? Well, there are solutions in the market, for that matter, in the sense, safe to use chemicals, which can be used. And there is an influx of, fogging guns, which convert them into mist and essentially not water droplet, and still are very efficient. Not with a very heavy price tag, say 25,000-30,000 rupees, but then it enables you to disinfect and at the same time keep your equipment intact. I would also talk about a particular important aspect. We talk about hand sanitizers so often, wherein it is mandated by government, it is mandated by, and we are also kind of sold to that particular approach, wherein we say that hand sanitizers are 99.99% efficient to kill viruses and bacteria. But how do we apply that? well, the traditional ways, you have a bottle kind of thing, you press it, you use it, but ultimately there were certain speculation that while we use those touch-based bottles, it is going to somehow infect you more and probably disinfect. There are debates around, so I would not get into that aspect. But then suddenly we have found that sensor-based dispensers, whether it is sanitizer dispenser or it is soap dispenser, are abundantly available. What you need to do is to make a right choice in the market. What you need to do, look for warranties, look for service support, go ahead and buy it. It is going to be a really nice investment, which, and you know why these investments, as I initially talked about, that in order to give sense of safety to people, we deploy guards in our facilities, those 3, 4, 5 number of guards, depending upon are they secure enough? Will they be able to stop some goons entering? Probably answer is no, but they give that sense of security. So similarly, that sense of safety is important for people, that whatever they are doing, I mean, we are going into the markets right now, and somebody in mall opens door for us. We thank that particular person. Say, thank you, guy. At least I had not that need to touch that door. So these kind of technologies are helpful to create that sense of safety. Similarly, now lift suppliers have done some customizations. You can, change their lift button. One particular very smart thing that I encountered recently, about 4 or 5 months back, which I would like to talk about, and that is microburster treatment. Now, microburster treatment are being, given by few vendors in India until now. And to some extent, it has been a debatable concept as yet. But since I did my significant study into it, so I can talk about it. Microburster treatment is something very similar to sanitization. But the differentiating factor between sanitization and microburster treatment is that sanitization is always post facto, wherein a surface gets infected, you sanitize it, that gets clean. But what microburster treatment, what these vendors are claiming about is that if you sanitize a substance with a particular given chemical, it is going to form a protective layer over that particular surface, and it is going to protect you. And there are different products, protect you from, say, 28 days to 90 days precisely. That does mean that once it is protected, even if there is an attack of COVID virus onto it, or any other bacteria or any other virus, it is going to be automatically destroyed. I mean, I would be happy to share more information about this on a one-to-one chat, being in GSS group anytime else. But just to give you the highlight of it, that it is a teratogenic chemical used in that, wherein when we apply that coating, it leaves a layer of sharp blades, which are those blades are microbiological. They can't be even seen with naked eye. A layer of sharp blades, carbon blades, which defend microbial growth, and as soon as a microbe lands onto it, it is destroyed into pieces. It happens, there is a scientific formula about it, wherein the atoms of nitrogen get positively charged, which is part of the chemical, and that attract negatively charged those virus cell membranes and puncture their microbes. So as I said, their potency is from 28 days to 3 months. There are certain hands-on measurement ways available in the market. Wherein you can instantly check whether a surface is carrying a tolerable amount of virus, tolerable amount of the load of bacteria and virus. That machine is called ATP machine. It's a handheld machine. Very, very useful. Generally, ATP machines, I mean, my food sector colleagues would know more about it. It is essentially found in, applied in food sector to check the level of bacteria and viruses where food is. prepared. It has got certain threshold levels, which is 0 to 30, say 30 to 100, considerable clean. I guess 100 to 200, caution to be applied. So it's a very handy machine. You just take a swab and insert into it, and within 15 seconds, it gives out results. So the reason why I talked about it for 2-3 minutes is essentially because I have seen the demo of it, and I found that while we were, after a month or two, when we revisited to that particular location where that demo thing was applied, we found it was the results were really encouraging. So on the same lines, these temperature IR based guns that we talked about, as I said, that 1 degree, 2 degree temperature makes a lot of difference. So why not to opt for something very dependable? And when I say dependable, opt for a technology which is giving you the right results, of course. Well, what is that thing? What is that technology? That technology, instead of IR, the industry says that it is thermal. So a technology which is based on thermal would give you a better accurate rate. There are certain solutions already in the market. Well, it ranges from 15,000 to 3,000, 4,000 rupees. But depending upon your organization need, depending upon your footfall, go ahead and explore them. There are few which I have come across in my journey of selecting material, selecting services. I have come across a few. Would be happy to share on a one-on-one chat or sometimes onto the group. Those things would be helpful to you. The idea is that whatever means that you bring in, whatever technology that you bring in, the idea is that first of all, document it. Document the need, document the problem, document the need, and then document the solution coming out of that particular product. Just don't go ahead just by virtue of somebody saying that this is going to work for you. Probably not. Evaluate in your own unique way as you would want to evaluate. That's my only recommendation. Draw some sheets, do some whiteboard work, bring in some Excel and PowerPoint documents, evaluate it, and then go ahead with it. That's all.
Thank you so much, sir.
Well,
So Aman sir, I will come back to you with what are the functional changes that you suggest in the infra? Because I see a lot of organizations now these days has moved to the linear seating patterns. So what should be the right approach for them to start their operations?
Gautam, I will take that on, and Sneh has very extensively explained all the methodologies for sanitization, etc., which we are doing. The temperature scans will continue. The other aspects of minimizing touch points and whatever efforts we can for physical disconnection, we will be doing. As far as the operational aspects, which I feel will be important to be considered, one will be that most organizations will have to go in for a healthy mix of work from office and work from home, because real estate cost is there. We cannot get more, real estate to seat the same number of people which we had earlier. Obviously, no organization will be able to afford that. So in case we have to maintain social distancing, we have to maintain the separation of people to an extent, we have to give them the comfort, the fearlessness of being able to be working in a environment which is not a risk, obvious risk to them. I think there will be a operational change towards a mix of work from home and work from office, at least for the time to come, probably towards the end of, up till the end of 2021. And as a part of this, we could consider having hot seats in our, traditionally not every organization has the concept of hot seats. But if we have hot seats, we can have people coming to work on maybe 1 day in a week, 2 days in a week, and they come, they don't have a definite allocated seat. They apply for that, they book that seat and go into a hot seat area and work out that day or that 2 days from there. So that is one functional aspect which I see coming in. Another aspect will be that the regularity of health checks. We all conduct health checks, or health related activities, but there would be a regular health check at the workplace, which will have to be adopted. I feel, if nothing else, it will be a methodology of screening people, not only for the virus, but also other comorbidities which somebody may have and may not even know. The silent killers, as we know, that somebody's got a diabetic problem, somebody's got a hypertensive problem. These will have to be identified and people advised accordingly. We will have to think of new ways how to make our locations where we have more gathering of people, whether it is the cafeterias, the gymnasiums, the meeting rooms, the auditoriums, what have you, and try and bring in more and more discipline in the use of these, whether we should have them, when do we start, how do we run them. Gyms are running in the markets, cafeterias, restaurants are running in the markets, but you go to a restaurant today, you see a very nicely packed plate which has been sanitized, and rather not just a plate, each part of the crockery and cutlery being served to you in any good black tie restaurant is definitely sealed and sanitized and sealed and provided to you. How do we do that at our workplaces where typically we use a steel thali and serve people? Do we go in for disposable crockery? Use, like we are using disposable plastic, which goes very much against our ethics of environment friendly thought. But you could go in for a non-plastic disposable option where people come, use, and it is thrown. Of course, it has a additional cost creeping in. This will have to be looked at. The as it was mentioned earlier during the discussion, transport usage, the sanitization before every trip, after every trip, the temperature scans before a person boards, use of separators in the transportation, which I think more or less most organizations have adopted already, will have to come in. One important aspect for us as the community of the facilities management teams, we must have our SOPs ready for the worst case scenario. Because when any of us is not there, any of us who's directing or inner role of direction is not there, the youngest junior most person at the spot should be able to take a call and react as fast as possible to any threat of any sort, which will only happen, which is a very, I would say, a military-like thought, where we have, drills and SOPs for everything. So we think the worst and prepare for the best, so that we are like rather prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and think that we are going to be, prepared for anything that comes our way. Like here, we had to battle on the fly, we had to devise new things. We should not be facing something of this sort, because it can't be, hope, God forbid, I mean, I hope I am wrong, but I don't think something could be so nasty across the world. We have not been hit by something at this scale. Even the Spanish flu was not at this scale, largely because people weren't traveling. So wherever we can avoid travel, whatever we can do by communication through electronic means, or wherever it is possible to keep people away for at least a while, it's going to work. But now, the most important aspect that I feel that must be touched over here is the psychological effect which is this separation is having on people. The psychological effect of not going to work, not meeting your colleagues, not meeting your friends, working out of the same house, same room, same day, sleeping there, eating there. You're kind of locked up in that place. It has a deep psychological effect on people. How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with the resentment that is building into the minds of people? The fear that is building into the minds of people, the threat of losing jobs that is coming into the minds of people. This has to be dealt with in a very, very professional manner in all functional aspects. I feel that most organizations need to have a psychological team being set up, which can comprise of people from the HR, the delivery teams, the administrative teams, whoever, whatsoever, who come in and building that confidence with the workforce. Because otherwise, the psychological hit is going to be very, very large. Now, take for example a young girl who's also a mother, and she's got to work from, and as we all know, that work from home has actually resulted in much longer work hours. So people are working much longer in the 24-hour cycle. The mothers who were very comfortable, I had around 80 children in the creche in my office. All those 80 mothers were very happy bringing their children, leaving them in the creche, working all day and taking their kids back home in the evening. Now, throughout the last year, they have been working. They have to manage the child. They have to manage the home front. They have to manage the, husbands like me who probably don't know how to make a omelette also. So they have to manage all these things from there and still carry on. So that is where I'm coming from, the psychological effect which is going to be hitting everybody, whoever is in that kind of a situation, very hard. That functional aspect will have to be looked into in great detail by all organizations.
Thank you so much, Aman sir and Sneh sir. I think we talked about in the initial discussion, we talked about how your campus was partially operational, sir, even during the peak of COVID. So, what are the few challenges and risks that you still see are there in the operations, and what are our plans to mitigate those risks?
We have, like I said initially, that we never had a complete shutdown at all. Even from day one, we were operational. And to say, Gautam, at that time, of course, nobody knew what is going to happen, how it is going to pan out in the times to come. We were all, as I mentioned earlier, we were in a very state of, the unknown, absolutely. And we were meeting every challenge on a daily basis. We were working out things on the fly and we were meeting it. Now that we have been through a large part of it, the vaccination is available. People are being vaccinated. There is hope again on everybody's face. And hopefully by say another 6 to 7 months, we should be a vaccinated population on the earth, maybe 10 months. But the intervening period that we see is going to entail a lot of precautions that we will have to continue with. Use of sanitizers, as Sneh had mentioned earlier, use of all those technologies which Sneh described about, avoiding infections of any sort. If yesterday I got a cough and a cold, I said flu, okay, and I took a day off, couple of days off. I did my goggles, had a odd Disprin or something, and went to sleep. Over the 2 days, you recovered and you went back. Today I get a sneeze also, and everybody starts looking at you in a very strange manner that what is wrong with this guy? I hope he's not it. So these issues are what we will have to deal with. These are the aspects that going ahead we will have to take those precautions. So we will have to continue with the mask. We will have to continue with the sanitization. We will have to bring in whatever technical aspects that are possible to avoid even common off corona infections which are possible. We will have to, continue with the precautions that we've been taking in minimizing the touch points, doing the temperature scans, continuing to take as much of knowledge that we have gained in this year and exercising it in the near future at least. So all those precautions which we've been continuing with when we were in a very strong grip of the virus will have to continue. We are seeing that there are places in the country where the infections are increasing. Maharashtra, Mumbai, Pune, Punjab, Kerala was bad. Kerala has come back again and recovered by taking all these precautions and instilling. The night curfews are on again in places. There are aspects which are being looked into. So these will keep happening till we are totally eradicated. We've eradicated this threat totally. Till then, we will have to continue in the same fashion, I feel. Gautam?
Thanks, sir. So Sneh sir, I believe your office was also operational partially during this time. So what are those challenges that you see are still there, and what are your plans to mitigate those risks?
So Gautam, from a point of risk and challenges, we have been operating partially, not much from office unless and until there was a dire need to. But yes, our operations have been 100% in effect from a work from home aspect. Coming back to the future of COVID, post-COVID scenario. In a post-COVID scenario, the risks and challenges that I see is, first of all, from a risk, I would rather say first, from a risk perspective, there could be any bigger risk other than business disruption. And when I say business disruption, obviously it is going to be, by virtue of some positive cases around. We can have those benchmarks or those rules or those documents, talking about our process to be followed, wherein we might say that with these many positive cases, we would do this, with these many positive cases, we would do that. And if the threshold of this much is breached, we would declare again a lockdown. But again, those are good processes, good documents, good practices with us, but that risk cannot be forgotten. Second, again, risk from a risk perspective, when in a post-COVID scenario, obviously I might have myself said that let us promote self-transport, self-commutation, avoid public transport. But then it again leads to so many other kind of associated risks. If a person is traveling on his own, consider, and we know that we work on a 24/7 basis. We know that what a person goes through while he's on road traffic with female folks around. So I would consider it as a risk. The third and very important risk is that if my business is not going to come back 100%, what happens to my support staff? Will I need almost all 100% of my support staff? Will I need those 50 number of BAU housekeeping guys cleaning stuff? Will I need my 100% of maintenance staff to take care of office premises? The answer is no, because the business expects that if I am giving you 50% load, all the more you reduce your 50% support staff load. That's a risk. Loss of employment. Challenges. Yes, the challenge that I personally am into it, and I expect my FM folks that they would be also into the same challenge: cost optimization. How do we optimize cost? The same cost, decreased cost in the ratio of working manpower cost. The AMC rates have not come down. The diesel rates have not come down. The repair and maintenance thing is as good as before, and 10-15% inflation has already been there. The work staff, the minimum wages have increased. So cost optimization, how are we going to bring in? We have to find solutions to it. Space optimization. Well, if I'm sure we all are here from different organizations, and we have different inventories in our hand. Somebody would be holding 300, somebody would be holding 3,000, and some of us might be holding 30,000 as well. But we know that that 100% of space is never going to be utilized. At least I can vouch for this from a service sector standpoint. And if you are not into production, if you are not into a factory, this is going to be seen, at least for next 2-3 years. So how are you going to establish that whatever space that you have is going to be optimized optimally? Well, that would be the last thing, that you break production seats and convert them into something else. Obviously, that is going to be the last thing that you would do, because nobody wants to let go production space. Logistics. While in a work from home environment, it has been a real pain point. Timely delivery as well as timely collection. We have been struggling to send piece of hardware to the remote locations, because we know that most of us or the business folks, be it development, BPO, service, insurance, so many of them, they have moved to their hometowns. And their hometowns is as good as a kasbah, a town, a village, anywhere in country. And there are SLAs around. A person coming in on board within 24 hours, he needs to be, productive. So the machine has to reach him. Similarly, if and people are switching jobs as well. So if somebody is resigning within 24 hours, the same hardware, the same piece of desktop needs to be collected back. Well, challenge. So these are certain things that have to be kept in mind. We all know, and this is my humble statement to the leadership, a humble statement to business owners and my FM folks, that pre and post COVID situation are not going to be the same. It is very much expected that the initial costs would go up. Few aspects that can be kept in mind. I mean, our workforce requirement, optimize them. You are the best people around to do that. Cost of operation, bring them down. Increase convenience and comfort. Everybody is expecting a delight. So increase convenience and comfort for the business from wherever they are doing that. Work timing, of course, flexibility in work timing is going to be a requirement when they are going to come back to office. Please remember this. How are you going to enable it? There has to be some method, some innovation around that, which should be there in your mind and pocket, which you are going to give to your leadership. That how you are going to meet that flexible work timing requirement, wherein previously there was exact, defined number of shifts, defined number of cabs, buses, transport, everything all around. But now you'll have to manipulate everything of that. You will have to tweak everything around that. And of course, one thing that I was talking about is that additional costs of optimization. We have been talking about risks and challenges, but let us step back. I'm sure many of you are aware about few basic, control documents that help us to identify and mitigate those risks. They are not rocket science documents. What I'm referring to is a simple risk assessment document. I'm sure many of you would have prepared that document. My urge would be get back to that particular sheet. List down all your risks, list down their potential failure modes, list down their potential effect under failure mode, causes, what controls you have at present, what is your detection, what is your RPN. Let's get back to the board. List everything that down. I'm not advocating it. I'm telling you, because that's the way forward. That's the solution that you will have to rely upon. Nothing is going to happen automatically. Suddenly somebody would realize that the output is not qualitative. So what alternatives we have? But these documents, and I'm telling you, my friends from admin personnel to admin personnel, bring in those documents. Those are very handy documents. Google out risk assessment documents. Google out business impact analysis document. You don't need anything else. Just fill that thing out, and be very honest while you're filling that thing out. Probably you will not need this kind of sessions to gain information about what are risks and challenges. You would be yourself listing out those risks and challenges and finding a solution for it. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sneh sir. I think we talked about the occupancy in offices, and I think we all are anticipating that offices are not going to operate, especially the IT, ITS are not going to operate on 100% occupancy for this year. So what is that one advice that you want to give to FMs, especially when they have to balance between the expenditures and the optimization? Because on the one side, we are putting a lot of efforts, extra manpower towards the health and hygiene. of employees. On the other side, since the offices are not running on 100% occupancy, we also have another the task in hand to reduce the overall operational costs. So how you take this up, Aman sir?
See what happens, Gautam. Overall operational cost, if I see over the last 1 year, what was my usual expense at the Coforge campus, I would have gone at 50%, more or less, in which a large chunk has been the savings, or I wouldn't even call it savings, because this is not a cost out that we've managed. It has happened because of the circumstances. So I would say that the company saved around 50% of their payout on operational costs just because of the situation that they've been in. So there is definitely a feeling that now, which is going to creep in, and like, I'll be very, very blunt over here. All of you are mostly facility managers, I guess. Do remember one aspect, that this importance that you had, the work that you've done over the last 1 year, the risks that you've taken are all going to fade away the moment everything starts falling into place. This is my experience. The organizations, the corporates are very quick to forget on that. And like Sneh mentioned, the cost controls, the team cutting, this will come in now. When the numbers are low, why do you need these people? And I know we all get emotionally involved with our teams. We all have that aspect of connectivity with them. We all don't want somebody to lose a job, but it is going to happen. It is going to be there. There are some aspects of the facility which, like, if I have say a facade cleaning team, and I have X, 1,000 feet of facade, that hasn't changed. That will still remain. But I was asked this question as to why do you need these facade cleaners now that people are not coming to the office? I don't see, how I can answer that. There is a question which is asked that only 10% of people are coming into the office. Your security is still manned at around almost 65% of business as usual. The vulnerable areas have not stopped. The requirement of manning a spot, whether 20 people go through it or 200 people go through it, remains the same. Yes, what we can do is, there are certain recent new steps that we have taken. I used to have, for example, 3 guards in my 2 levels of basement for parking. We suddenly realized that the total number of parking I have is around 600 cars in the basements, and only 100 are coming. So I took out those 3 guards. This is what I'll have to kind of accept. So it will be each and every post, each and every profile, each and every job of your functional manpower will have to be assessed. We have 10% people coming in. We have an in-gate into the campus, and we have an out-gate out of the campus. Both the gates are manned with 3 people each. One supervisor, one guy who scans the car, coding, and the other guy who was doing the temperature scan, and one guy to check the boot. I've closed the out gate. We just closed the out gate, sealed it, got rid of those 4 people. Same in and out gate is being utilized. Organizations are going to look for these out of the box solutions. You will have to do these with a heavy heart. I know those 4 guys would have lost their jobs probably because there's no employment outside. Look at our transporters. Our transporters are dying. They're bleeding over the last 1 year. I run some 56 bus routes. I am not using a single bus. Those guys are in tears, but they also know I can't do anything about it. They are not required anymore. So these aspects are going to be there, Gautam. They'll have to be faced by case basis, head on. And mind you, once these manpower, this ancillary manpower starts coming down, the next ask is going to be on the support functions. We are going to be asked, why do you need so many people? whoever you have, whether you have 5 guys in your team, you have 15 or you have 50. If your total number of people attending to the workforce goes down, this question is going to be asked. And frankly speaking, you already feel that, if you get your whole team to office, you will tend to feel that you're overstaffed yourself. But you don't want somebody to lose their jobs. You'll have to keep thinking how somebody can multitask. How can you give them something else? How can you have them absorbed into whatever other side you can? These are going to remain, Gautam. The cost cutting ask is going to come in, and it's going to come in very big.
And I think, Kanalika, if I can, with your permission, if I can add something to it.
Please, Nick.
So, sir, I have been into similar kind of situation before, wherein seeing the cost spike. I used to hesitate what to say, how to say. Wherever I have looked into, everything seems legitimate because the scope is more, so the cost is going to be more. My only suggestion to the young managers is be very frank to talk to your leadership team. Calibrating the proposed business aspects about returning to office, opening your heart out, telling them or updating them with your solutions is not a bad idea. Nobody is going to kill you for that. Going by my experience, this aspect, since as I said that it has been very new to everybody, the leaders are also equally opinionated about it. And sometimes there are strong opinions, and at times there are supportive opinions as well. You would have, both types of leaders around you. And we being facilitators, at this stage, we have to focus on bringing in multiple and innovative ideas on the table. So, I mean, the moment we bring innovative and good ideas around, we'll help leadership to take decisions. And in turn, it gives us their support, their sponsorship. So if anything does not at times work well, our backs will be kind of supported by the same leaders around. So my suggestion is that whatever you do in these dynamic environment, keep your leaders, keep your managers, keep your business counterparts from business domain with you, updated, informed, sometimes seeking opinion. It is going to go. It will go a long way. So that's my only 2 cents on this. Thank you.
I'll like to add here one aspect which I feel pinches us the most. Your staff at the lowest level, your housekeeper, your even a security guard or a lady chambermaid or someone like that. You feel bad when you are being asked to cut down their numbers. And obviously, because the moment you cut their numbers down, the fires in that hearth stop burning, which is something which I don't know. I personally feel that all of us feel very bad about. You don't mind we took salary cuts in the initial part. We cribbed like hell, I'll be honest. I did. So did everybody else. But you still had something coming in. And that is what prompted me to think about when I was being asked to reduce these numbers. We've gone into a cyclic deployment. That is, we have a housekeeper who comes in for a month, earns his full month's pay, and he's taken off the strength for the next month. Comes back the month after that, and somebody else works the next month. So even if he gets 1 month's pay over 2 months, his fires don't stop. His children don't go hungry. That is something which we started, and this was an idea which my team and I evolved, and it is working very fine. If you sit down with your workforce and tell them this, that either I have to fire 20 of you, or I can do this and the load gets divided over all 60 of you. They accept it very well. They all accepted it, they agreed, and they said, thank you, you're not killing any of us. And by the time the guy's turn comes to take a day off, a month off, he's worked for around 3 months actually. So he gets 3 months pay over 4 months. He doesn't die, which is a idea which we put into place and it is functioning. So my advice to you is that in case you need to help these guys out and you have to reduce your numbers and your cost, you may try adopting this method also, especially for your old manpower, which has been with you for years, and you have soft corners for them. They will understand. Do try that. It's an idea which we evolved with and it's working.
Thanks, sir. So I'll go back to Sneh, sir. So Sneh, sir, some time back, we talked about the right communication strategy. So what is the right communication strategy that we should adopt so that we at least we keep our employees informed, because some of them are coming to office, some of them are still working from home. So what should be the right approach for the right communication that we do?
Gautam, I would divide this question into two parts, that is during COVID and post-COVID. First of all, during COVID. So I'm sure there are many organizations there. Gautam, open speaker. There are many organizations there who have imbibed this particular practice of getting in touch with their employee mass, a webcast, a Zoom call, wherein at least I can talk about my company, NIT Limited. Our CEO interacts directly on a monthly basis with the people. So not only about COVID, but in general, business discussion, business updates, and a little light onto the present COVID scenario, that up till when the business would be in work from home environment, and when are we planning to resume. So that is during COVID. Obviously, levels are different wherein CEO is communicating. At the same time, it is going down to the level of project managers and managers who are communicating with the people. The point over here is, since we are talking about office resuming post-COVID, it will be pertinent to say that the communication have to be very apt. That particular communication is going to booking of lot of air tickets, lot of train tickets, lot of houses that were vacated are going to be tenanted again. It is going to cause a big circulation depending upon the organization. So the communication has to be very balanced, apt, and precise. I would rather say the communicating person is, if he is as senior as much, is better. I mean, other points are quite clear there. Arranging a welcome back program for staff and managers would be a good idea, to inform them of new workplace protocols. The new workplace protocols, on one way it goes electronically first, and then probably when they are the first day, you brief them, you tell them what is new for you, what are the changes around. It would categorically discuss or say about workplace distancing protocol, travel and arrival arrangements, of course, in line with the government advisories as on that particular date, working arrangements, including breaks, changes in sitting arrangements. These all things need to be communicated in piecemeal, but every aspect of this type has to be communicated in advance, giving them sense of security, workstation hygiene. You may like to consider, sanitizing, in need of waste bins at a broad level. You would like to tell them that suddenly they come over there and find no waste bin. So they would be surprised. That's a bad surprise. If such kind of measures or such kind of things that have been implemented, which are not going to go down well, communicated beforehand. Emergency situations, if at all some emergency situation is going to happen, the communication has to be drafted in the same line, told to them that if this happens, we would do that. If that happens, we would do this. Everything. Transport. whether company provided transport or self-managed, there has to be advisory about it. There has to be do's and don'ts around it during their course of travel, what they are supposed to do and what they are not. Vehicle hygiene requirements, as in terms of somebody is coming in private. So they need to be told, if you have an internal system wherein you are going to sanitize even private vehicles, they're going to be offended the moment you spray sodium hypochlorite on their vehicles. They have to be told about it. So these kind of communications has to be drafted in an intelligent manner about technology, about the differences between what used to be there in BAU mode and right now, and then keep enforcing, health and hygiene related communications, because ultimately that is something which would keep healthy. Of course, use means of emails, posters, broadcast, SMSs. So many of us have that facility as well, internet and etc. So that's about it.
Gautam, one aspect which I'd like to mention here. Many
Thank you so much, Lisa, for
organizations.
this.
Gautam, can I come in?
He's asking.
Gautam, can I add
Yes,
to?
yes.
Huh?
Please, sir. Please,
Yeah.
sir.
So there are many organizations which set up COVID cells during the crisis. I'm aware of a couple of them. HCL Technologies, my old company. I mean, many of us who are on the screens over here have worked there. They had set up a COVID cell which was operating directly under the CHRO, that is the head of HR, and it had smaller units in every location across the world in all the 39-40 countries that they work out of, which had a contact number, a contact person, and anybody could reach out to this team at any given time. That was one way. And all communications, as mentioned by Sneh, on the various aspects of transport, seating, cafeterias, whatever other facilities that we provide, were being sent out regularly by these people. In my organization, we, the CSO team, as we are called over there, the commercial services organization, the CSO team was managing this entire lot. So we had, I've got files full of the SOPs that we had made, the various instructions which were coming down from the government on a regular period of, even down to the what did they call this when they sealed an area, containment zones. Yeah, the containment zones. All this information we were sending out on a real-time basis, 24/7 to all employees across the organization. And of course, various SOPs were made. We even have a COVID SOP which is there on the company portal, in which on the opening page, where an employee is given all kinds of information regarding different aspects, like transport mentioned by Sneh, or working in the office, or in case you are feeling unwell, or who do you have to contact, what happens if something happens on a particular floor. And like this was the initial time when we had to, if one case meant the whole sector being declared a containment zone, later it came on to building, then thirdly it came on to a floor wise thing and all. You have to be real time with the inputs that you have. Keep yourself updated. All of us must have the latest contacts. And I am telling you that what really assisted us throughout this tough operation was the liaison that we maintain with various government officials, whether it is the traffic, DCP traffic, or the DCP of that zone, or even people in the office of the DM. The DC, SEZ, etc. These contacts have to be regularly updated and vetted, and you personally, as managers, must have a personal contact with these people. I know at times it feels very awkward to go and, we typically go on Diwali and give that guy a gift or something like that. But it is more important that you have a personal touch with them. Many a time during this lockdown, because I was feeding my entire ancillary workforce plus the employees who were working during that lockdown, that is the security, the maintenance, the housekeeping, were all being fed off my kitchen. And that time, many a time the cops, because they were on round the clock duty in the initial part, they would come and park outside and say, sir, kuch khane ke liye mil jayega. I fed those guys also. But then they came in use many occasion that they've helped us out. These are situations which I feel as facilitators, we willy or nilly have to bring into our way of functioning. These will come in use as we go ahead. Thank you, Gautam.
Thanks, sir. I think this is really nice to hear that a lot of organizations have supported the people at lower level during the peak of COVID, and they're still supporting them. So we will also have some questions from the members who joined us online. So Aman sir, I want this to you to address this. So Mr. Manish Sehgal has asked that while we are focusing a lot on the internal changes within the facility, what should be the right approach during the natural calamities, because neither employees nor our teams are trained on the evacuation during this time. So how to keep the safe assembly areas, and what are the right communication and the policy that they can draft, so that in case of any urgency, at least people know what exactly they are supposed to do considering social distancing norms.
Very, very important question. I feel that this is someone who's thinking very, very long term. And I will give you again an example of something, because since we were going to the office during this time and there were very minimal people, I mean, less than 100 initial days, we had a lot of time. And then I started thinking, my team was coming and I didn't have any much work to do with them except for distribution of the assets, which took place in the first 15 to 20 days. Then I started thinking on these lines, and I'm talking of which is incorrect on my part, but since this happened, I can say that the first thing I started doing was that what happens when this kind of an issue happens? And then secondly, it came on to the natural calamities. You would be shocked and surprised. I am sure I will request all of you to do a check within your own teams. You normally have a project team which is there, or you have your own teams handling it. Look for the drawings of your building. I challenge you, not more than 10% will be able to find them absolutely clearly and accurately. You will not, believe me. I have experienced this, and my campus is a fairly new one, not more than 10 or 11 years old. You will not find those drawings. One, I traced those drawings in this period. Two, we floated it out in the organization. The drawings of my building being available in my building helps nobody in a natural calamity. If there's a done earthquake, the drawings have also gone in down, and you can keep searching for where the done basement is. So what we've done, we have taken backups of these drawings, taken them into soft copies and stored them at geographical locations which are well separated. So my drawings are now located in Kolkata, Mumbai, and Bangalore. Similarly, the drawings of those buildings which we are occupying in those locations, they are being backed up at areas like mine. In addition to this, one aspect that we realized was that your access control records. We all have access control. We all maintain it. We all flash our cards. They are stored in your BMS room. Tomorrow there's a calamity, there's a fire, there's an earthquake, God forbid any of this happens. How will you know how many people were inside? Who was not? Because that record has also got burnt inside. So we've started backing up our access control data also in other locations or on the cloud. We've got the options today, technology is there. So in natural calamities or any other such thing, the first thing that we need to have is know your history of the building, have the drawings with you, know who has entered the building on that particular day. This is absolutely essential. Thereafter, in a natural calamity of that level, you will it will be beyond your control. So what I would suggest is that being prepared for that situation is more important at our level, because if something like that happens, then the government machinery will have to come in. They will be in, or whoever has to come in and do their roles, whether it is the firefighting lot or but the first question they'll ask you was andar kitne aadmi the. And if you don't know it, because the darn record has got burnt inside, you don't know how many people went and who went. So this is one basic step that I feel all of you must put in, that you must have your records at other locations. You must have your access control records available to you in real time from a source which is not going to get destroyed in a natural calamity at that place. We had an incident. This was, I think, 21st of May last year during the lockdown. We were sitting in the office and having lunch. And since, like I told you, minimal strength was there. So my team, very cavalier thing, since we were working together all day, we used to sit down and eat lunch together only in one of the meeting rooms right next to the admin hall. And suddenly I looked out and there was black smoke billowing away in the sky and blowing across at almost ground level. I asked the guard, I said, "Ye kya hua?" He said, "Saab, aag si lag rahi hai." Must be a guy from this area only. He said, "Aag si lag rahi hai." मैं कहा आग सी तो मेरे को भी लग रही है, पर कहाँ लगी हुई है? So we rushed outside, and there is an empty plot. If any of you have seen the Coforge campus, there is a old, not old, it's an unconstructed building which has, the construction has been stalled, and it was some earth something called a project which went awry, and I believe the owner is locked up or whatever. So he had a large area which was cleared out, and that was all dry. Month of May, it was absolutely dry grass, and either somebody flicked a burning butt into it, or a matchbox, or it took a spark from some wire or whatever, we don't know. The whole place went up. We rang up the fire brigade, because this was right next to my boundary wall. We rang up the fire brigade. The fire brigade told us, "Der lagegi." This is that day when in Greater Noida there were 5 fires at the same time. 3 of them were in chemical related places. One was in a paint factory, one was in some other place, one was in some other place. Now that day I realized the value of that training that we do for our ancillary manpower in firefighting, everything. Soon that fire became a blaze, and it was heading towards our campus, very, very strongly moving in towards the campus. And my campus also on that side has a 5-acre stretch, which is a non-delivery area, which has dry grass in it. Had it come across, it would have spread into the campus building. We connected our fire hoses from the nearest fire hydrants on all directions. And you won't believe it, I have a picture of my pantry boy wearing a firefighter's helmet and standing with that damn hose and hosing away at the flames. We managed it in-house. By the time the fire brigade people came, and suddenly the fire would, we would feel it's gone up, and with a little wind, it would pick up again. So these kind of natural calamities and all can best be dealt with, Manish, and only Manish, I think, asked the question, when you have trained for it, when you are prepared for it. So we conduct, this exercise, as I will give the credit to my predecessor there, Colonel Ashok, who's online here. He started these, regular trainings of all the manpower in various aspects. Whether you're a housekeeper or not, you are trained in firefighting also. Whether you're a security guard, you are not the only guy who's expected to look at something. You get assistant into the other aspects also. My biggest help in the whole thing was my QRT teams. I have 4 vehicles over there. They were running and transporting hose pipes from all over the campus towards that direction. This all will come from training. So you have to, I would say, envisage these situations and make mock exercises for your people. Make them do them. This is how we do it in the army. We war game. What is war gaming is? We pretend we are at war, and we paint pictures and exercises, and then we make people react to them. So this is what you have to do. God willing, nothing like that will happen. But if it does happen, you'll be at least partly prepared to handle those calamities. Anything
Thank
that
you.
to add? Yeah,
Thanks,
sure.
thanks, sir. So I'll have another question for, and probably this is the last question that we'll pick up from the chat box. So Sneh sir, you talked about the microbus treatment. So we have Prabhat and Bhagwat, who wanted to know more about this treatment. Is the results evident? In case if yes, do we have any case studies for this?
Okay, that's a pertinent question, and I was expecting that to come. See, Bhagwat and Prabhat, I just wanted to say that as far as its effectiveness is concerned, so I can say that I have verified the effectiveness. Yes, me and my team have verified the effectiveness, but you need not to go by me. I'm not going to even tell you who all vendors are involved or who are doing that, because I might know only 2-3 people, but there could be many more people doing the same set of activities. So I'm not their sponsor or something of that sort. We are talking about a particular practice which was demonstrated, and as a follow-up, we found it to be effective. What I want to do is to draw your attention to ATP meter. ATP meter is a handheld machine. Its full form is adenosine triphosphate. It's a bit expensive machine, roughly in the size of about 6 to 8 inches by 2-3 inches wide. It just gets a swab inserted and then it gives out reading in 15 seconds. I would urge you to go Google that thing out, ATP machine, what it does, how it does. Because ATP machine is not there just to tell you whether that treatment has been effective or not. ATP machine is an aid available to people like us, which anyways is going to test out the surface that you want to, whether it is good or bad. In the sense, if you want to test out your kitchen platform or a particular serving dish for that matter, I mean, we normally do those surprise inspections for our food, water, and all those things. We can even do this, wherein it would check the surface out for availability of bacteria or viruses around, and it gives out results. So if no matter if somebody has said that this treatment would last for 3 months or 90 days, there is no harm in getting its ATP test, getting that particular surface ATP tested, and rest assured about it. So and it is I would like to reiterate that it is just as it is a new solution around, so that's why I talked about it. It might not be the only solution in the market. We need to be convinced, as I said earlier, we need to be convinced in completeness, wherein whatever option we are going to suggest to our organization. So there are ways around it. There are techniques around it to cross-check, and at the same time, from authenticity point of view, whether that particular treatment is acceptable or not. Though without naming the vendor, I can say that the vendor is FDA certified. The product is FDA certified by a lab known as Eurovir Germany. Quality labs have certified them. Dermatists have certified them that it is not allergic to skin and all that. So all that is separate. What we need here, that you need to be convinced for what you are doing. Of course, it is expensive to what spraying of other chemicals are there. I mean, for example, these Virex 256 is an excellent chemical. It nearly eliminates all the bacteria and viruses. So you need to take that particular call, that what you want to do. But yeah, this helps.
Thanks, Nesar. This is really insightful. I think we really wanted this session to continue because of the suggestions that we are getting from the eminent speakers like you. But unfortunately, due to paucity of time, we have to end this session today. So may I please request Colonel Ashok Prabhakar to do the thank you note for our speakers today?
Good evening, friends. I suppose we've had a wonderful session today. Thank you, Colonel Aman. Thank you, Sneh Anand Giri. You both have been wonderful. And more than anything else, it is during this mid-life crisis or mid-COVID crisis, when we're moving from a pre-COVID period to the present vaccination stage. We worked this combination of an offline online combo today, and my speakers, our guests have been extremely kind. We're grateful to them that they came all the way and joined us in the session today, shared their knowledge, the experience of the last 1 year. I think we are that much more brighter and learned today from the experience that they've had. Folks, one thing is very clear. All facilities and corporate services managers out here, in the last 1 year, if there are kudos and appreciations to anybody in the organization, it is you people. You are the ones who've taken the complete load of the organization on your broad shoulders and carried it on. Like Kalman was mentioning, for the first period when everybody was dug down into their holes in their homes, it was you all who were there at the sites, pushing across, ensuring that the complete tasks of the organization continue, perfectly. I'm sure your folks at home must have been extremely worried, like everybody was, but you braved all that and went through it. Grateful to you, grateful from the fraternity as such, grateful from the society that you all have done this wonderful job for the society, for the country. And today, where in the Committee of Nations, India stands, I think we all have a small little place in that also. Sneh mentioned wonderfully about the equal rookies. Yes, we are rookies on this. We're equally experts or rookies in this complete 1 year. But yes, thanks to the effort that you put in, I think we come out brighter, learn it more and more. And that was wonderful to hear from you, Colonel Aman, about the SOPs and the activities that you've done and how well you use the time during that period. I think that's a great learning. That you mentioned that the data is being kept across various geographies. So tomorrow, if there's a floods at place one, the other place is going to be, in true sense of the word, that BCP is going to be taking place. I think that's a great learning from us. And folks, one thing is very clear. This is not the last of the epidemics that has befallen the earth. We all accept that. We never expected it. But then at the same time, please be rest assured, this is not the last one. We've had the H1N1s, we've had bird flus, swine flu, H1N1 and such like. So this is another Chinese virus. I would rather call it Chinese virus than COVID. So we've had this one, and God forbid, of course, that shouldn't happen. But we know these kind of things are very much possible, and we have to prepare for that. So those of us who have been in the firing line now, I think it's a great learning for you. You braved the front now. Now, going forwards, when you're going to be giving stories to your subordinates who didn't have an experience of this, you're going to be carrying this experience with you. Put it down in black and white on your computers, in your laptops, in your machines, and save it over there, the lesson that you come up from there. Because our memories are, not very long lasting. So this information should be somewhere, should be with you so that you can fall back to this activity as and when required. And of course, the unfortunate part that in spite of the hard work done by all the housekeeping, facility maintenance, transport staff, the axe unfortunately is also falling on these teams out here because the people that you're supporting, the strength is reduced. So, like Naman was mentioning, that you've taken various measures to ensure their longevity, their, the bread at home is also getting baked. You all have done that. So keep that aspect of society in mind, keep doing a little bit for them also, any which manner that you find suitable. And thanks once again, Nikal Namanpreet and Kalamanpreet Lega, Shaurya Chakar, and Sneh Anand Giri. You all both have been wonderful. I'm extremely grateful to you. On a personal front, we requested you, and you've driven all the way to this place for this activity. Extremely grateful. I'll not be, it'll not be sufficient for me to unless I add my team members out here. Gautam, again, a wonderful team member. He's handled the whole thing through. Vivek, IP, the complete North chapter team. I think you all have done a wonderful job last 1 month that we've been planning for this activity. We're wondering how to go ahead, how to have this combo of offline and online. There were pressures at one time, so let's have it only online, that we've been continuing. I said, no, now that we are going from a mode of completely work from home to a mid stage where we are a half work, half home, half office. And so similarly, our activities also should work out. And I think you all have done it beautifully. You handled it so well. I think the complete communication has been nice. Apart from that, thanks as always, continue to the central team. Sam, thanks for giving these ideas. Thanks for raising the bar every time. Jatin, and of course the complete team out here, folks. Those of us who are online would apart from the strength of 60 odd that I saw participants over there, there are almost about 15-20 friends out here in this campus out here planning for future activities simultaneously of the GSCS. So GSCS is truly global. And may I tell you one thing, we already have a global member also. Suman Veer, are you still there? Suman Veer has joined in from Canada. Suman Veer is from the Canada chapter. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he says, sir, I want to join your session. I'll be there 3 o'clock in the morning. Thanks, Suman Veer, if you're still there. I did see you sometime back, you were there. Wonderful, thank you. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to all the participants who joined online. It wouldn't have been possible without you all. Extremely grateful. Look forward to another session like this. The next session is going to be on the similar lines. We'll be talking of maintenance activities, how to handle the maintenance aspect in this mid-COVID period. Thank you, folks. Back to you, Gautam.
Thank you so much, Karan sir. I think with this thank you note, it's time for us to end this session. But in case of any questions, any queries that our members have, they can always reach out to Jatin, me, or any of these chapter leaders directly.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Wonderful,
Very nice.
sir.